5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sara. I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are discussing leaving judgment for God. How to get over your need to correct others and learn to respect them instead. I want to pause quickly before we jump into the show to acknowledge and pass on condolences to Charlie Kirk's family, anyone that has been affected by this heinous, insanely evil tragedy. I think there is a lot going on in the country right now, and I, like many of you, I would imagine, were quite shocked to not only hear of the news, but to see the reactions of those who were celebratory in Charlie Kirk's passing, and then likely being rightly shocked by the number of people you may have known in real life or just witnessed on the internet that were reveling in such a heinous act. I know for one, for myself, I was truly taken back by just the absolute hardened hearts of the individuals I've known over my lifetime that I keep in touch with, and was just really shaken just by the sheer hatred they exhibited, which was not typically something I had experienced with them. And, you know, it brought up this idea for me of the two-sided coin. You know, there is always a way that you treat people that you care for, and there may be a way that you treat people you don't care for. And unless you find yourself on a journey of really trying to meet and greet everyone with the same energy, whether that be an enemy or a friend, you're going to have difficulty in being able to discern and dole out appropriate and respectful interactions with individuals that you do not care for. It's probably a good time for me to acknowledge that there has absolutely been moments in my life when me judging others has completely backfired. And it's not to say that I myself am immune to judging others. It's something I ask God's forgiveness for every day, because it is something that, in turning towards inner growth due to my ever-growing relationship with Jesus and my continued studies in Christianity and Catholicism, there is this inner knowing of myself that there are parts of me that were created in negative habit spaces because of things that had happened to me. And we may find ourselves in a space where we're predicating the actions that we have with others based on our past inflictions from those that are nothing like the person that we have standing in front of us. I believe that we are at an absolute crux in our nation, and it does feel like the beginnings of a holy war of sorts. I've been saying this for months now, especially as a new Christian. I thought I might have been going a little kooky or getting a little too deep into it, but my goodness, are we absolutely at a crossroads of good and evil becoming a narrative that we either openly accept or work our dang hardest to fight and combat. I used to pride myself on being able to spot people's flaws and mistakes quickly, and I'm ashamed to say that I thought it made me smarter and more discerning and better than these people even. But what it actually made me was exhausted, angry, and increasingly isolated, leading me to conspiracy theories and feeling that everyone was out to get me. And there is certainly a hunt that is afoot here. And I think we are being guided and cajoled to believe that it is something completely different than what it is. But what I believe is truly at stake here, especially within the United States, are our morals and our decency. Every day, morality in America is being cheapened and spit upon with every action that we are deeming acceptable within a true reality where we know it is anything but. You may find yourself a non-believer listening to this podcast right now, and I'm sure what I'm saying may be sparking some rage within inside you, because it certainly would have me. Not even that long ago, to be honest. I used to be a person that would openly mock and make fun of people that believed in a white Jesus in the sky. And again, I'll say it, he wasn't white, but he was real and he did live. Thank God he lived. Thank Jesus he lived. But we find ourselves living in a golden era of judgment, and social media has absolutely turned everyone into their own God-facing critic, commentating and becoming correctional officers of sorts on society's behavior. We've become a society that's more interested in being right than being helpful or respectful, more focused on exposing problems than creating solutions that bring us together. And the same energy we spend on judging others, wanting them to transform, could transform our own communities if we redirected it towards understanding and respecting one another when all else fails. So, what's the promise for today's episode? One, we're going to explore why judgment feels so good, but can work so poorly against the overall narrative of coming together, and how choosing respect over correction can both transform your relationships with yourself and your interpersonal relationships within your family unit, but also your community. We're going to take a look at why humans are wired to judge, what judgment actually costs you, and practical steps for becoming someone who builds up rather than tears down. This isn't about becoming a pushover or ignoring real problems, and it's certainly about becoming more effective at creating positive, long-lasting change that is mirrored and fashioned within the house of respect. So let's talk about the judgment trap, why we judge and why it just flat out will never work. So we have to start with the psychology of judgment. And again, you guys, if you're new here, I take notes. I'm a copious note taker for my episodes, and you're going to see my eyes coming down because this is a topic that I do not want to fuss around with today. We're going to get right to the nitty gritty of it because this is so important now more than ever. There is a schism that is ever widening. And if we don't do our very best as level-headed individuals, millennial and younger, to bring this country back into a place of harmony, respect, and order, we are cooked, okay? Truly cooked. This is a very pivotal time, not only in our history, but one that will ripple through in eternity with either positive effects or negative effects. It's that simple. I'm not here to fearmonger you. I know you can feel it. If you're listening to this episode, it's because you want to be a part of the change. And I applaud you for that. And I'm going to pray for you on that journey as I pray for myself every day on this journey of changing my habits of judgment of others into respect for others. So let's talk about the psychology of judgment. We're evolutionarily wired to judge. It started out as survival changes, but is currently sabotaging our relationships. I think that's the best way to say it. Humans developed quick judgment abilities to identify threats and allies for survival, but what protected us in dangerous environments often damage us in social environments. Your brain is constantly categorizing people as safe or dangerous, similar or different, valuable or worthless. But these snap judgments are always wrong and always incomplete because we will never know the true totality of a person or what lies in their heart. And we've seen this both with the reactions from others celebrating this heinous murder caught on video for everyone to see and celebrating that, but also knowing them to be a wonderful mom that picks up at the PTA line and she bakes cupcakes and does all the things, but has this hateful space in her heart she's been able to hide until now. We can never know the full posture of someone's heart. That is not for us to know. But what we can pick up on are the subtle energies that they give off, which is part of our psychological makeup and the wiring that we have to help protect us from individuals like that make our hair raise, that we understand their humanity is dipping. It's leaving the building, quite literally. They are turning into a state of fight or flight, and it is all fight. No rationality, no basing in reality, because that trigger shot them straight up to the moon with rage, and they're going to espouse their rage, and they're so happy he's dead. Ooh, that is such a horrific place to find yourself inside your heart and soul, to be reveling in another's death, especially someone who was murdered on, in essence, live television. We all saw the bullet pierce his perfectly clean skin and then have nothing but a hose of red, visceral blood pour out of him and his lifeless, slumped over body. Quite horrific. Quite horrific. Whoa. All right, so let's dip right back in. Ego protection and the mechanism of ego protection is something that psychologically we are wired for. Judging others makes us feel superior and safe. When you judge someone else's mistakes, failures, differences, you are temporarily feeling better about your own inadequacies and your uncertainties. It's all a projection. Judgment is a projection. If this is not something you're comfortable accepting, you will one day. For now, just know that if you find yourself judging others, there's a kernel of reality of yourself within that judgment that you do not have the capacity or the humility to face within yourself yet, but you will. And a way to help yourself in doing that is to start blindly forcing yourself to respect others, especially those you don't agree with, especially those you don't align with. It takes almost nothing of you, especially if you're not being physically assaulted or harmed by someone you find to be other to you and your way of being, thinking, living, etc. That energy and that time you're putting into the judgment needs to be paused, need to turn inward and say, what part of this person makes me uncomfortable about a part of me I'm not willing to accept? This is really difficult for me to do. I'm going to preface, you need to give yourself a ton of grace throughout this period, because recognizing not only one, that you judge people unfairly is harsh, right? But two, you're going to see once you start paying attention to judging others, how frequently throughout your day you do it. And if you're in a space right now where you find yourself wanting to become a better person, the frequency at which you find yourself judging others and having these feelings that are anything but good for them can really make you feel bad about yourself and bring you down. But I want to say this. It's like that adage of like, oh, moms that complain they're not a good mom. The fact that you're worrying about being a good mom at all means you're a good mom, right? That adage applies to this. The fact that you're worried about being a judgmental person means that you want to be a non-judgmental person. You want to be a better person. And it's a journey. And once you start on it, you're working every day to get better and better at it. Okay. So give yourself that grace, because it will take time to replace the habit of judgment that is evolutionarily wired into us, our psychology and our makeup of protection. And know that although it may not feel safe to not pass judgment and try to force yourself into feeling some modicum of respect for them, that you may feel your body reacting, thinking it's unsafe. Why am I doing this? It's okay. This is going to be a journey. It's going to be a marathon. It's not a race. And you got this. Okay? Know it. Know it in your heart. You got this. There's also this illusion of control when we are judging others. Judgment feels like power, but it actually is revealing your powerlessness. And this was huge for me. Judging others gives you the feeling that you understand and can control complex situations, but it's usually just a way of you avoiding your own powerlessness. The more out of control you feel in your life, the more likely you are to become judgmental about others' choices and behaviors. So let's take, for example, the Charlie Kirk assassination. Many individuals were very proud to espouse their lack of liking him when he was alive and turning that into a celebration now that he was no longer present on this earth, because his ideologies, some of the things that he said, triggered something within them that made them feel unsafe as a person. A lot of the things that Charlie discussed were larger topic discussions that were taken down to a very micro level because of the individual in front of him asking a question. There was always this experimental dance between what level of respect from both partners in the conversation was going to be present to indicate how much conversation and how much beneficial conversation was going to happen between two completely opposing individuals in terms of their thoughts, their feelings, the way they live their life, etc. To me, someone that has always loved discourse, and to me, someone that was raised with the adage, the truth hurts whether you have to hear it or say it, And then the also accepting the understanding that someone else's truth may not reflect your truth, but both truths can be simultaneous, has been huge in helping me personally to stop judging those that get me feeling scared. They get me feeling unsafe. I used to have a really big problem, especially 2024 and before, of allowing big political situations and scenarios to send me on an absolute head to toe physical panic attack. The last time I can remember, my mother came to visit Fernando and I in Philadelphia. This was before we had moved back to Cape May. And it was during the lockdown. And there were discussions of forcing you know what's, just the overall inability. Everything was falling down around me. I was an entrepreneur. We were planning on leaving this city, and we were very concerned about, what economic area are we landing ourselves into because we're leaving this place, but also the control in this place is really scary, and where we're moving to, there's a lot less control. There was just so much going on, and my anger and vitriol and judgment of the government, whether it was warranted or not, came from a place of me feeling absolutely powerless, absolutely out of any realm of control to be able to protect myself and my family and people I loved from looming overlords of decision making being able to literally affect the cells within our bodies. It terrified me to almost death. Like that moment gets me going now. And that is just further proof that in those moments of powerlessness, the more out of control you feel within your own life, like a dog cornered, they're going to snarl, they're going to bite, they're going to spit, they're going to charge. We're animals, y'all. We're going to do the same thing. And I think with the fever pitch, the way it is right now in the United States of America, we are all acting like cornered dogs. And I think we all need a big old timeout. We need a big old timeout to reassess and try to get ourselves back to the preschool level of respect that we all demand our toddlers and the youngins in our life to reciprocate to one another. And we need to get back to that place ourselves. Now, that's a big old prescription for positive growth right there. But it's going to be a hard pill for all of us to swallow if we don't set down our judgment and if we don't place respect at the forefront and make it the intention of all of our actions moving forward from this moment in history. So let's talk about why judgment backfires. Relationship destruction comes from judgment killing the connection and the influence that you have amongst others and those in your community. People can sense when you're judging them. And even when you don't say anything, judgment always creates distance rather than connection. The moment someone feels judged by you, they stop listening to anything helpful you might have to offer and start defending themselves instead. We've all been in this position, right? Let's take it all the way down to children. You've got a 4-year-old. There's cupcakes that were sitting out cooling. You hadn't iced them yet. You walk over to the cupcakes and you see one of them has a big old finger poked in it because they thought it might have been iced and they were feeling up on the counter and they couldn't find it. And then you look at them and you go, honey, what happened to the cupcake? Oh, I don't know, mommy. And they've got cupcake up to their dang near top knuckle on their hand because it hadn't cooled all the way yet. And, they're going, ouch, ouch, because it's still hot. And then you go, honey, why'd you do that? I didn't do it. You did it. That's when the gaslighting comes out. You see that lack of intellect and that lack of emotional intelligence in a child, which is certainly how they should be behaving. That is the operations and the systems that they have at their disposal at that present moment in development. But as adults, if we find ourselves reacting as children caught in a little white lie or even a big lie, that is a huge red flag for you as an individual, an adult individual, that your first reaction to being caught doing something is to distract, project, gaslight, pass judgment on others. Oh, well, you did this. Okay, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about this. We can also see this narrative kind of falling into the individuals that were, celebrating his passing, being upset at others not in the same thinking realm as them, being as equally upset or sharing information about this tragedy that happened, that tragedy that happened, etc., and taking us through the list of tragedies and all wanting it to come down to their narrative. And I think the biggest thing that we're missing here is the constant criticism amongst these parties. It's draining our mental and emotional energy to a place of like personal exhaustion that is not allowing any of us to see clearly, think with our hearts and our heads simultaneously, and find a way out of this mess. We can't be stuck in this constant loop of judgment and hatred and pointing the finger and gaslighting. It is not good for us. Chronic judgment creates chronic anger, which literally is not only damaging your physical health and your emotional well-being, but it's destroying our communities and our families from the inside out. Now, social media plays a huge role in the judgment machine that has become America. Algorithm amplification, those social platforms are profiting from your judgment addiction. They want you outraged. They want you on that app scrolling all day long, hyped up on cortisol, pissed off at the world, keeping yourself in a state of anger rather than being able to de-escalate down to a place of decision-making, critical thought, critical theory. What are we doing here? What is the overall goal? What's my goal for my life? Is this energy I'm putting out right now against someone I've never even met helping me on my journey? No, then you're quite literally a part of the opposition of good. You are what you eat. You are what you give. You are what you breathe. What are you giving, eating, breathing? Are you consuming crap? Are you giving crap? Stop. It's a decision. It's a hard one to make. As someone still actively working through it right now, it's a hard one to make. But I don't know about you. I can't live with the judgment I pass on myself anymore from judging others rather than seeking to understand them, or at the very least, just wishing them well and saying a prayer for them and letting them go on their way. Why? We're not attached at the hip. They don't mean anything to me. Well, great. Then let respect be something you dole out like candy and gifts to everyone you meet then. It's going to be difficult. It's going to hurt, but it's easy once you learn that judgment and disrespect is a habit just as much as respect and just simply allowing someone different than you to exist as a habit can be placed in your life and your day-to-day way of existing. Now, performative criticism and social media are a little bit hard to decipher these days, and let's talk about that. Social media makes judgment feel productive because you're getting likes, shares, you're hearing people that think the way you do, talk the way that you do, or maybe you're getting trolls or naysayers against the way that you feel, and then you feel validated and vindicated in the fact that you espouse what you feel, and it's fantastic, and no one else's viewpoints are ever going to trump what you're thinking about. Okay, you're entitled to that. But online criticism is giving you dopamine and making you feel good for being divisive, for passing judgment, for gossiping, for making fun of people, even for bullying. The bullying these days is so wild to me. I think as a millennial, and us being like the peak epitome of like what like physical bullying was before social media existed and all kids became keyboard warriors, which I find very troubling for the future. And we'll talk about that in another episode. But the dopamine hit that bullying and laughing at the expense of others' misfortunes brings to me is very concerning. And I think that as a society, social media has absolutely pushed this addiction and this dopamine release to the forefront of the way in which the American, what we believe to be the majority, although I think it is absolutely the minority of people that feel comfortable behaving in this manner. It is quite literally trash. If you are an adult individual and you are propping up at any moment within your day someone else being torn down, and even for you to consider it entertainment, well, you gotta step back here. You gotta take a seat and you gotta look at yourself and say, this is someone's child. I don't care how old they are. I'm someone's child. I'm loved by someone. I'm important to all of my family members, just as this person is, or I hope they are. I pray they would be. We need to start wanting the best for others, even our enemies, because the opposite of that leads to a revengeful filled heart that leaves you in a position to want others to have less than you because you haven't found a way to be grateful with the life that you have, and you need to compare yourself to others. That comparison trap invites judgment. You're only comparing because you feel powerless for some reason within the exchange. And it may not even be a physical exchange with a real person. It may be a post you see online, which is the high likelihood of the situation. Because a lot of people these days are very comfortable espousing their feelings online, but refuse to have a conversation about it in real life with real people. This is part of what incensed many to be angry with Charlie Kirk. Whether or not you liked what he was talking about, the man wanted conversation. I think we have plenty of examples within history throughout the globe where conversations ending led to physical violence. Agree with it or not, agree with him or not. Would you rather live in a place where everyone, no matter their viewpoints, are able to speak them freely? Or we've all led ourselves to fisticuffs and gun violence, even more than what is already prevalent and out there? It's a hard decision to make, and it may feel like one that is extremely, extremely limiting and even paralyzing at the moment. But we have a choice about how we react and what environments we create within the communities we live in, the family structures we have. And you do have a say in how you affect the makeup of the heart of America based on how we are all interpersonally acting with each other. Now, what is the hidden cost of playing judge and jury? Judgment does a lot to your character, and this was something that I needed to accept very deeply. Only a certain few were able to see the interactions and moments where I was judging others, because I got very good at just internally judging and not allowing those thoughts to escape my little mouth. Okay. That was putting me in a place where it was hardening the crap out of my heart. Constant criticism made me less compassionate over time. My empathy went out the window. Every time I judged someone without trying to understand their situation, I became harder and less likely to be able to connect with empathy and compassion as the first way of feeling for someone rather than hatred, judgment, and otherness. Judgment trains your mind to look for flaws first rather than the common thread of humanity, making you a harder and more cynical person about people and relationships in general. And once you have gotten to this place in your life, it's going to be really difficult for those around you to not see that and probably be very repelled by that energy and that unwarranted level of anger and hatred that you may not realize is coming off of you. For me, it was others just being like, you're so intense. You need to chill out. And I'd be like, no, sweating, enraged, in a full blown cortisol dump over XYZ. And people in my life were really patient. I'm thankful for the fact that they were, because they totally could have dumped me where I was at and just left me to be an angry, hateful person. But instead, man, one person in particular, instead, they gave me love. They told me that they could see me hurting. They told me that they knew my pain. Something no one had said to me before. And this particular woman just stopped me dead in my tracks one day. We had worked together on a political campaign for a Democrat that was running in Philadelphia. I very much consider myself a 2003 Democrat. I don't know what it shifted to now, but I'll leave it at that. And I caught myself judging really hard a situation that had happened in Philadelphia. It was one I hadn't really been exposed to before that moment. And the victim it was a horrific crime. It was someone I knew. And I just went for the absolute gills of the person that committed the crime, which happened to be a young Black male in Philadelphia. And although the crime was extremely horrific and this woman was murdered in a way that to this day I still am shocked by, after 20 years of living in Philadelphia and the numerous immeasurable amounts of violent crime that happened there, day after day, year after year, instead of taking a moment to think about that young boy and how young he was and the crime he committed and think about, my God, what happened to him? What happened to him to get into this place of just having so little respect for a human life that he was able to do what he did? And it took this woman just scooping me up in a big old hug, a lifelong Philadelphia resident, and saying to me, baby, you've never walked in his shoes, and he's never walked in your shoes. But all you can do is send him love. And she said it so sincerely. I now know her to be a woman of God, so it makes complete sense. She said it so sincerely that it stopped me in my literal tracks. And it made me feel shame. And it made me feel shame because I was so quick, as we should be, to just want justice for a victim, which requires judgment. But the judgment was not mine to give. I'm not God. I'm not a judge and a jury in the literal sense of a court system. All I am is a person that is now spewing hate for an individual I didn't know. I didn't know his upbringing. I didn't know the ins and outs of his life. I didn't know what hardened his heart. But I was very quick to dispense some really evil hatred on him. And, I find myself in a space now where I come back to that moment and I just think, silly girl. You were only 21 yourself. Silly girl. You didn't know any better. And how many people now today are in that space of their silly girl or silly boy moment where they let that need and want for the justice they feel is so rightly just entitled, that they have to push their beliefs on others to the point of it being kind of what we've turned into in a political arena at this present moment. No one's listening to anyone. All of us are so ready and postured to fight, and it's just getting to a place where spiritual emptiness is becoming the norm in the way that we interact with each other, and it's really scary. Judgment separates you from divine perspective. Most religious teachings are going to give you that understanding that judgment belongs to God because only God has complete knowledge of someone's heart, their circumstances, and their journey. And when you take on the role of judge, you're essentially claiming to have that wisdom and perspective on the level of God that you could never possess. Not only that, most times when you are believing in your heart of heart that this person is so evil, it might be because they have sparked something inside of you that you don't like. And you may find yourself leaning on that bit of evil that lingers, that got triggered from you seeing this situation you did not like, but you don't identify it as a bit of evil and a bit of a heart hardening. You identify it as they did it. It's them. Blame them. Them. And we're all guilty of this, no matter your affiliation, your religious home, family, I don't know what you would call that, denomination, like whatever you're doing, whoever you're following, we're all guilty of this. Why? We're not God. We're not perfect. We are fallible. We are the definition of failure, trying over and over and over again to get better. That's what it's all about. Let's talk about what judgment does to your relationships because it's steep, y'all, and you may not notice it until it's too late. First, trust is eroding the millisecond you pull judgment out and put it on the table. Judgment makes you unsafe for authentic connection. And when people know you're quick to judge others, they assume you're judging them too, even when you're not expressing it. It's that situation where you find yourself amongst some peers and then gossiping starts and you're like, oh, No, no, no. I don't want to be a part of that. And then you start thinking, oh man, if they're so willing and comfortable to talk about someone else in front of me, they have to be doing the same thing with me to someone else. It immediately makes you someone no one wants to be around. Judgmental people often end up pretty lonely and bitter because they've made being around them an unsafe place to be. If people can't be their authentic selves, no matter what that is, without you judging them or gaslighting them into behaving a way you want them to, you can probably expect that you're going to be very alone, or at the very least in an echo chamber of people just like you. And echo chambers can feel safe for a while, but trust me, guys, you're not living a full life. And I say this as a person that kept a lot of yes men and echo chamber like conversations happening in my life for a very long time. Conflict multiplication is huge when people have lost trust for you. Judgment escalates problems instead of solving them. And when you approach someone's mistakes with judgment rather than curiosity, you usually create a bigger problem than the original issue that you'd first noticed and felt needed correcting. Defensive responses to judgment from others can make people double down on problematic behavior rather than being open to change. If you feel as if you're being judged no matter what, why would you take the go ahead to just try and change yourself and become a better person or change that thing this person judging you doesn't like? It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. In reality, they're going to remove themselves from your presence and you will be left alone in this place of maybe feeling vindicated, like you were right. But what does right matter when you are alone? There's also a destruction of influence, and judgment eliminates your ability to help others grow. People only accept input from those who respect them. Judgment communicates immediate disrespect, which closes the door to any kind of positive impact you could have on someone else, especially if they are truly needing someone to help them on that road of change, or maybe kickstarted, or whatever it is. There may be a very viable reason for you to be judging them. Maybe they're doing harmful behavior to themselves or others. But starting off from a place of judgment rather than maybe approaching them on an emotional level and in an emotional scenario that they might be better wired for is kind of where the problem starts. The irony is that judgmental people often care about improvement and change, but their approach to that and helping others often leads to the complete opposite of the outcome they were originally going for. My judgment, I thought, came from a place of sheer love. Oh, I just want to help you. I want to show you where you're effing up. Meanwhile, I wasn't turning around and looking at myself. I wasn't passing that judgment on myself. I wasn't making being around me being a comfortable place to grow and exchange ideas, even if they're different, and evolve. I just made it Sarah's way or the highway in my tourist fashion. And that cost me so many relationships, so many opportunities, a decade's worth, if I'm being honest. So, what does judgment do to your community? We can assume it's going to create some division, right? But judgment turns your neighbors into enemies. Communities where judgment is normal becomes collections of competing groups rather than unified neighborhoods working towards a common good. When people are afraid of being judged, they stop participating in community activities, volunteering, or trying new things. It also lays down the law for problem perpetuation, which judgment focuses on blame rather than on solutions. Judgmental communities spend more energy around whose fault problems are rather than working together to solve them. And when judgment becomes the primary response to community issues, actual problem solving becomes secondary to finger pointing and gaslighting. Now, let's start and flip the conversation towards respect. Why does respect and honor work better than judgment? It's not rocket science, guys. Respect versus agreement. How can you honor someone without endorsing their choices? Respect means you recognize someone's inherent human dignity and their worth, even when you disagree with their behaviors, choices, thoughts, feelings, or way of life. You can respect someone's right to make their own decisions while still having opinions about whether those decisions are wise. We're all different people. We've all lived completely different lives. We've all had completely different layered, onioned experiences. When you have the ability to put in place respect over judgment, it flips the script within your relationships and your community, and life starts to get fun, interesting. Now, let's talk about respect versus enabling. Honor creates accountability without judgment. True respect sometimes means having difficult conversations and setting boundaries, but it does so from a foundation of caring rather than criticism. Respectful accountability focuses on the impact of behavior rather than attacking the person's character or worth. So, how do we float in the divine perspective here? God. God has the only complete picture needed for judgment. You will never know someone's full story, their past experiences, their current struggles, their limited options, their internal battles. God sees their heart, the circumstances, the journey, and the future potential. You only see the snapshots and the external behavior. And even if this was something that was done to you by someone else, know that God saw it too. If you feel like you need to pass judgment so that others can see what was done to you, just know God saw it too. You are not alone. You've been acknowledged. Yeah, that was wrong. Yeah, they were out of turn. Yeah, that was really racist. Yeah, that was pretty evil, what they said. And I really, really, really appreciate you working hard to give that person love rather than just shoveling them with more hate they've already got inside of them. So, how does respect transform relationships? First, it creates safety. Respect makes you someone others can trust with their struggles. When people know you'll respond to their mistakes with curiosity rather than condemnation, they are more likely to be honest about their problems. Respectful people become the one that others turn to for advice and support because they know they will not be judged for being a human, living the human experience, partnered with the human condition. Who knew? Now, when people respect you and you create an environment for authentic interaction and communication, your influence expands. Your honor increases your ability to create positive change. People are more likely to consider your perspective when they feel respected and valued by you, or at the very least, seen and heard. Respectful correction is received as caring guidance, while judgmental correction is received as a personal attack. I know that a lot of people have difficulty with criticism or judgment, namely coming from adult or parental figures within their life from an early age. If you haven't found yourself working through the inner child healing necessary to get through what was your childhood and being raised and all of the bumps and bruises you've acquired along the way that really lead you to be the habit-filled person that you are today, you may want to start there because you're going to find it extremely difficult to not pass judgment on others until you get to a place where you can look inside of your heart and figure out why you judge in the first place. And oftentimes it's because someone judged you unfairly when you were very small, and that was their ugliness that they forced upon you, and it led you to believe that it was an okay way of being and existing in the world and interacting with others. But it is absolutely not. Any lack of respect in an interaction with another person leaves you unhealthy, leaves you poor in your mentality, leaves you depraved in your soul, and it leaves you ultimately unhappy and feeling unfulfilled because you know you did something that you shouldn't have. There's this moment where you're feeling yourself mid-judgment going, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it because it feels so good because of that cortisol that my brain is so used to. Pause if you can in this moment. I do this still right now. Literally yesterday, I had to go, beep, stop, girl. These people are hurting. Everybody's hurting. You take that judgment, you kick it. You kick it. And instead, I'm going to stop and I'm going to pray for the people I don't understand. I'm going to stop and I'm going to work really hard at asking God to help me to understand this position that this person is coming from, that to me feels just so evil, so lost, so other. But I cannot expect for a connection to deepen with those that I do not get along with if there is not respect at the forefront of that interaction. Respect allows for authentic relationships to flourish, not only from the safety factor, but when judgment is removed from relationships, people can be genuine about their struggles, their dreams, their growth areas. Respect creates space for people to change and grow without fear of being judged again or being defined by their worst moments or biggest mistakes. There is something to be said about, I was born in 1985. When I went to college, the only social media was Facebook for universities only. Okay. Like life was a lot simpler then. But we certainly didn't live in a time and a space where you were never to be forgiven for the things you said, especially in those very delicate years of youth and your late teens and early 20s, where you're still trying to figure out who you are and what you believe in and what fires you up and what makes you feel alive. And I feel so badly for the lack of compassion that's present for not only vilifying people for things they've said in the past, but not being able to take a moment to respect and hope that since that time frame when they said something that was out of character or just evil or hurtful, that within that time frame maybe they've grown, maybe they've changed. Maybe if you approached them and said, hey, that problematic tweet you put out in 2010 just doesn't seem like the person in front of me today. Can you explain that to me? Approaching someone in that manner is a lot better and will have a lot better of a result, especially in discourse, than, oh my God, I can't believe you pretended to be my friend and bubbly bubbly ba because you said this about recycling in 2008 and I'm obsessed with recycling and how dare you? You're dead to me. Whoa. Not only did you just paint yourself as someone that I guess envisions themselves as one who is perfect and will never need grace on your journey of evolving and growing towards your new space of change. But it just makes you seem callous because we have all been young, even if that's in your 60s. We're all emotionally developing at different times, points, experiences within our life. And to just blanketly assume that the person you're judging has had the same upbringing as you that gives you this righteousness and this platform to be able to look down from and say, oh, you're effing up. Poor wretch. I won't judge you. I'll just gossip about you online. I'll just laugh here and there because of your misfortune. But I'm not there. That's not me. I'm a good person. What they did was horrible. They deserve to be seen for the evil person they are. What? Guys, I pray there's never a time where you get your mistakes shoved in your face with such energy behind it that you can't come back from that because you think you're unredeemable. You think that no one likes you. You think you're worthless because you made a mistake. Are we the sum of our mistakes or are we one individual mistake? Are we what we take from those experiences of failure, of shame, of guilt that we have inside of ourselves for our actions? Or do we get to take that and use it as divine fuel to make ourselves be a better person, to grow into a better family member, a better partner, a better coworker, a better community member? We can't if we allow the one mess up that someone else saw to define us. You can ask for forgiveness, but that forgiveness will only be asked for in a scenario where there is respect, an exchange of dialogue from an even-footed platform. And that will never happen if you consider yourself so righteous as to pass judgment on those for things that, if you think about it, you've probably done them already and done them multiple times within the past. So let's discuss how respect transforms communities a little further. One, collaboration becomes the way of operating as a unit in a group. Respect makes cooperative problem solving possible. Communities where respect is normal can tackle different issues together because people aren't afraid of being attacked for their ideas or their otherness or their mistakes. When respect becomes the default, people contribute their unique skills and perspectives instead of hiding them to avoid criticism. We're going to get a more realistic interaction with our neighbors and our communities and the people and the groups we find ourselves in. The innovation of this respect is also very encouraging. So, what does that mean? Respect creates a safe space for creativity and risk taking for the greater good. People can try new things. They can volunteer to find leadership within themselves. They can suggest solutions when they know that mistakes will be met with support rather than judgment. None of us are perfect, guys. We're all trying our best here. And everyone's best is going to be different. Respectful communities become magnets for people who want to make positive contributions because they know their efforts will be honored, and not only honored, but matched. When we are finding ourselves in a space of respecting others rather than tearing them down with judgment, it does become a scenario where all tides float the same boat, higher and higher together. Rising tides float all boats. That's what it is. So, what are practical steps that we can take to choose respect over judgment? Because I want you guys to walk away from this feeling not like you've been smacked on the booty for being a little judgmental little thing, because that's not the case. That's not how I feel. Because I myself, as I've said several times throughout this episode, am actively dealing with problems and issues of judging others. Now, you may catch yourself in moments where you feel superior to others or when you're mentally composing criticisms about their choices or their actions. But pay attention to this internal commentary and dialogue when it happens, because you have to notice rather when you're making assumptions about that person, their motivations, their characters, or their worthiness, which are things that you likely don't have all the information for to be able to ascertain this level of like info and intel that you need to be able to properly and willingly and like appropriately judge someone. It's never appropriate to judge someone, guys. People can do awful, terrible things. All you should be looking to do is one, thank God you're not in their place, and two, pray for them. It's gonna seem outrageous, especially if you're someone that is not particularly religious. If that's the case, then I just want you to challenge yourself to wish them well and let it go. Don't let it be a 15-minute, like, I'm going through every girlfriend I have and texting them, oh my God, this person did blah, 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 to me. Same conversation. We just need someone to see that we've been hurt. Again, if you're ever needing someone to see or hear about the hurt so that you don't have to judge someone else, remember, God is with you. God saw it. He's going to take care of it. It's not for you to do. For me, trigger identification was huge. Recognizing what types of behavior activated my judgmental responses was key in me being able to get 1% less judgmental a day. And as I said, and will continue to say, I am on that journey. I had to understand and notice what kinds of people or behaviors triggered my strongest judgmental reactions. And this revealed so much to me about my fears, my insecurities, and my past wounds that I had not addressed yet. The things that bother you the most about others are sometimes things, again, reflecting your own internal struggle or things that you fear you're going to turn into, whether that is true or false. But I want you to take a moment to think about the communication pattern assessment that can happen when you start to recognize how often throughout your day you are judging and what are those triggers that are leading you to judge. So how do you evaluate whether you build someone up or tear them down? Look at your conversations, your social media posts, your internal dialogue. Are you spending more time criticizing problems or creating solutions? I'll mic drop on that one because it's very easy to see if you're on the side building for a better future or just currently tearing down the present with no real plan in place of how you're going to make it better. This world, this thing, this person you keep complaining about, what are you going to do about it? Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan outside of complaining? Oh, you don't? Okay. That might be a moment then where you need to zip them lips and go sit in the back of the classroom and allow those that are taking the vibes and feelings they want to place into judgment, turning it into respect for their community. Maybe they find it really hard to respect that person, place, or thing that's agitated them. And instead, they want to prioritize respecting their community. So they aren't going to inflict their overwhelming anger and resentment and fear into judgment that then further tears down said community. They are upset at being affected by this person, thing, place that they are judging. Are you making the community you're upset about and wanting to protect with judgment from this person, place, and thing a better place? Or are you doing nothing like that and you therefore are just as bad as the person you're placing judgment on? It's a hard pill to swallow. That was big for me. That was really big for me. So it gives me goosebumps. I think something that was really big for me too, and this was a number of years ago when I did this, because everyone really enjoyed my harsh personality that was very masculine. And I thank the good Lord above have worked through a good amount of that masculine energy and just given it back, because it was never mine to begin with. It was certainly put in place out of just survival and needing to feel safe. But I had to ask the people closest to me whether or not they primarily felt judged by me or supported by me. And their answers ruined my day. Not only did it ruin my day, it really made me consider who I am in the lives of those that I love. Recently, I've had to look at, am I a judgmental person? Or am I giving this person that I love overwhelming respect to be themselves and do the things that I don't like and that I would deeply advise them against doing? But I can't do anything about it except judge them. But I can't judge them. All I can do, and this was huge for me, was remember that in the way that God has paved every step of my life, He has a plan and a journey for me. And throughout that time frame, I was a horrible person. I did terrible things to people. I said nasty things. I wasn't kind to myself ever at all. I prioritized the wrong things. I had alcohol issues. You name it. I used to fight grown men in the club. Dozens. Was known for it in my hometown. So embarrassing. But I have to have grace for that version of me that was so hurt. And all of those steps in that journey that people around me, I'm sure, were like, what the heck is this girl doing? We got to judge her. But they didn't. Which led me to then look at present moments in my life currently where people I love and are close to me are doing things that I'm just like, what are you doing? What is going on? What are you doing? What is going on? Why? And old Sara, pre-Jesus coming into my life, would have been like, sit down. I'm fixing all of this. You're doing this, that, and the third. Bop, 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 bop. I was the friend that came in and swept up all the bad stuff and didn't allow that person to grow through the pain and the suffering. I could see them living through that. I was judging them about. Their behavior was bringing them pain and suffering, like my behavior has my whole life. And instead of giving them the grace of just being like, oh my goodness, this is just a really, really hard path on your journey right now. But God's got you because He made this journey for you. I didn't have that wherewithal then. I do now. And it's been really significant in helping me to just accept people for who they are, pray for them to find a better way of being to themselves, and know that all I can do is just lead forward with God's love and hope that that will spill onto them somehow to where they start to prioritize that same love for themselves. Now, respect-based responses were really hard for me when I decided that I was going to make it my mission to be less of a judgmental little turd. I had to come from a place of curiosity rather than criticism, because ultimately I was judging these people's behavior with criticism rather than curiosity. When someone does something that seems wrong or foolish to you, you can ask yourself first, what am I not getting about this situation? What might I be misconstruing? What evidence here is missing for me that's leading me to think XYZ about this person when it could really be ABC, right? So before we form conclusions, we really have to take a look internally and think, one, what am I placing on this situation that's making me feel a certain way about it that may not be valid or warranted? And two, what am I not understanding about this interaction? And instead, I tried replacing it with, why would they do that? What circumstances might make that choice make sense to them? Which is going to be really hard, right? Like if I take that first scenario of thinking about that young man that murdered a friend of mine in Philadelphia, and it coming out a few months later during the trial and everything that he was just really angry at the gentrification in his neighborhood, which at the time was not Northern Liberties, but was very quickly turning into Northern Liberties. And you know, his whole neighborhood was changing. His neighbors were being forced out. You know, it was affecting everything in his life. And he made the decision to take that anger out on someone else and ultimately ending a life. But I'd never really taken a moment to think about, like, why would this make sense to him? And he was a child, right? He wasn't even 17. And all he could see and feel around him was pain. And there was probably a narrative posted around that matched very viscerally what he was seeing going on around him. And it led him to make one of the biggest mistakes of his life. But I can pass judgment and I could say, I'd never murder someone. A little overshare here, but that's not true. I have. I ended a life by choice. And it came at a time where that was what, without even a second moment's decision, was and became my reality. And you can take what I said there and do what you want with that. And you can think about it in whatever way you regard that to be, whether it is truly ending a life for you or not. I've grown into a place in my heart where I have been working very deeply on, accepting that I did do that. I did end a life. And it was done in a completely different fashion, but I'm no better. I'm no better than anyone. None of us are. So how do we redirect our judgment energy towards constructive action? When you notice a problem, ask, how can I help solve this? Rather than, whose fault is this? I could see the old people's lips. Who did this? We have to channel that mental energy into the direction of problem solving, using a sphere of influence for good within your community, your family structure, your workplace, etc., rather than spending that energy on criticism and negativity. So when we utilize respectful, truthful tellings and addressing problems without attacking people and focusing on specific behaviors and their impact rather than making judgments about a person, and using I statements about how something affects you rather than you statements dictating what kind of person that makes them, paired with generous assumption making and giving people the benefit of the doubt, and partnered with, follow me here, boundary setting without blame, protecting yourself while maintaining respect for others, you can limit your exposure to someone's problematic behavior without condemning them as a person and without punishing them for their choices, while also keeping yourself at a safe distance from incurring any additional harm from this person. Now, This may be difficult to do online, right? Because we can only place up so many boundaries, but you don't have a white picket fence around your social media account, and anything and everything will pour in, as did this assassination video of Charlie Kirk that I'm sure, like me, you had no interest or business in seeing, and it will haunt you for a long time to come. Now, we have to remember that interacting with others online is a beautiful way of being able to model respect, right? We can be mindful of what we do when we're reaching other people's pages, and we can also be mindful of how we react to the people that reach our pages. We have to focus on understanding their perspective rather than looking to prove them wrong. We don't need any more keyboard warriors or trolls. There's plenty, okay? And I'm almost wondering now these days if that is even real or true, because the dead internet theory just seems a little too applicable to what has been the last 5-6 years of our life. And if you haven't heard about that, give a little Google. It's going to blow your mind. Algorithm retaining and retraining is something you're going to have to work hard to do. And I certainly have been doing this over the last 8 months while on my journey becoming a Christian. I have been pruning the crap out of my social media. And especially over these last few days of Charlie Kirk's assassination, I just quite simply have no room or space in my emotional feed that is my life, whether it be in person or on social media, to placate individuals that play off hatred as their prerogative. Goes across the board. I saw a lot of people on all sides. I don't particularly find myself on the side. I'm smack dab in the middle. Smack dab. If you're a millennial, if you grew up in the early 2000s and were an 18-year-old within that time frame, you're probably leaning to a Democrat of the 2003, 4, 5 era that is no longer. And I find myself having a really difficult time being able to interact on social media at all without there being a problem of me being in the middle. I get it from both sides. And now that I'm a person of faith, I'm getting it on that side as well. People are pissed that I believe in Jesus. People are pissed that I believe Christ is king. People are pissed that I have changed the way in which I have always spoken to now include a few different pronouns and names, namely Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior. And these things are going to happen. Why? Because we're all different people. And to expect anyone to be exactly like me is not only lunacy, but how boring of a world would that be? And the moment that we lose the ability to have different ideas as a populace and a people, we lose our humanity. And it may not feel like it, especially if you find yourself truly grappling in a place where you just don't understand the hatred on all sides, for all people, for all scenarios, all things, all thought topics, all subjects, all societal places of thinking, feeling, and being. It may feel vindicated for you to hate someone because of X, Y, Z. But I want you to think about this. Every time you allow hatred to leave your body in a position of trying to hurt someone else, or you need to know about what you did, you're creating a wound in yourself that only gets deeper and darker every time you do that to someone else. Why? Because you chose to further the problem than to give a humble acceptance to their existence and just allow that trespass to have happened. And again, know that God saw it. You're not alone in this victimization that has happened to you. And do your very best to start a positive ripple effect in the other direction, rather than laying in and languishing in this, oh, they said this, they did this. It can be the most extreme thing. I've seen people forgive people that have murdered their families because they didn't want to live in the turmoil of keeping themselves in that place of judgment and hatred and just evil. You don't have to carry it. You can let it go. And I promise you, it's not going to tip the scales one way or the other in that person being any more justified, or you feeling justified because they've been vindicated or you've been vindicated, whatever the cause or the thing or the outcome may be, you can shift from being a complainer to a contributor. And you can shift from a place of feeling like the whole world is making your life difficult to becoming a person that is trying really hard to make everyone else's lives a better place. Problem identification versus problem solving is the beginning and the end of it. Move beyond pointing out what's wrong. Okay, Captain Obvious, what you gonna do about it? We know America's in the shitter right now. Excuse my S word, but like, we're not in a good space. As the kids say, America's cooked, y'all. And if it weren't for this younger generation coming up and just looking at all of us adults and being like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, literally, I think if we could take just a quiet moment here to applaud Gen Z, the overwhelming majority of Gen Z that want to get back to that preschool level of respect and tolerance for any and all, like we used to do when we were small, before an adult trampled on our belief that that was okay. Because that's the big kicker here. Hurt people hurt people. Children don't hurt people. Hurt people hurt children. They plant that seed of anger, of judgment, of feeling feeling like you've been victimized, and because you didn't get that sorry from your teacher, or I'm sorry I did that to you from your parent, you not only harbor a victim mentality, but there is some anger, there is some resentment, there is some sadness that has become a part of you that you think is what is more worthy of feeding because that's what someone did to you, rather than saying, no, 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 I am worthy of love, respect, I am valuable, and I do not allow someone else to dictate my thoughts and feelings of myself. We can rebuke judgment without vilifying the person giving it to us. On the other hand, there needs to be an overwhelming amount of respect and just wishing well for another person. So, how do we build bridges instead of walls? It starts with understanding different perspectives and connecting with people that think differently than you. And a really great exercise that you may find very challenging is to take yourself to a place you've never been before and ask questions of people that are different than you. And if that needs to be done online, then so be it. I would feel that Reddit would be a really great platform that would be a little more accepting and open and welcome to different perspectives asking questions. But you can also find programs, podcast episodes where individuals are doing this very thing. I hate to say it, maybe a little too soon for some, but this was what Charlie Kirk was doing. He was taking viewpoints of his and asking individuals with different viewpoints to explain it so he could understand where they're coming from, because he wanted to understand all perspectives and how they created the body of humanity and people that is the United States of America. You can do this as well. And in facilitating these kinds of conversations, you can help others as well to have productive discussions rather than arguments and create this ripple effect that will continue to move on and on beyond that conversation. Now, as usual, I have made this too long of an episode here because I have yammered on for an hour and 15 minutes. So we're going to wrap this up. But I appreciate you if you're still here for sticking around, because it is up to us, guys. I don't know if this has become more apparent for you like it has for me in the last few days, but we can no longer sit idle. We can no longer just let bygones be bygones. We can no longer just wait on the sidelines and allow the older generations to keep absolutely wreaking havoc on us and our sensibilities and how we know to be with each other. I think the hateful I can't even say it, predilections of our elders has trickled down generationally with traumas and behaviors and habits that are not good for the populace, let alone us as individuals. And I really want to encourage you to not only make a promise of change to yourself, But I want you to make a promise to your family and your community around you that you will work towards transformation through your own individual change. When you consistently show respect for others, when you're building others up, you can give them permission to do the same, not only for you, but for others in their life as well. Communities change one person at a time. Your transformation can be the beginning of an absolute revolution for where you live or where you work or your family life. And I encourage you to be this brave and have these conversations that you would very likely just love to leave at the door and never talk about again. But we can only continue to keep burying the wounds that have led this country down the road it's on now. And I really, really think we are the generation to be able to handle these huge, hurtful conversations, to decipher what hurt is ours and what has been handed down to us from previous generations, and make a concerted effort to move together as one. I don't know about you, my Richies, but I fully, fully believe in this being a possibility in the very near future for us and our country. And like Sophie, with the love of her poppy just coming home right now, I hope that this episode has encouraged you to work on your judgment of others and of yourself. We are all God's creatures. We all deserve the love that we wish to have from others. And I hope that you feel brave and emboldened enough to give it today, especially to those that you think deserve it the least. My Richies, it has been an absolute pleasure. I thank you so much for your time and attention. I wish you safetyness and happiness in your life. And always make life rich. God bless.